Joining me now to discuss what that means ahead of tomorrow's job report is Recruiter.com CEO Evan Sohn. Evan, this doesn't kind of, at first blush, make sense to me. Recruiters aren't feeling so hot, but they're paying more, but higher pay isn't making prospective employees feel so hot. Like, why are we so picky and why are we so vexed?
Yeah, look, thanks, John, for having me back. And are we surprised that it's not easy? Nothing's been easy this entire time. You know, we started to use the expression from our talent effectiveness team called the Great Reevaluation, and we think companies are really, and employees are really reevaluating when they want to go back, how they want to go back, how should they get paid, et cetera. And it's making the recruiter's job even more difficult. And that's why we saw recruiter sentiment down out of 5. Last month, it was at 3.9. It's down to 3.6. And the candidate sentiment went down from 3.5 last month to 3.3. It's hard. And, you know, the companies are trying. We saw 37% of the recruiters reported an increase in salaries. Yet on the candidate side, that dropped as a priority. So compensation as a priority dropped from 30% to 25%. So let me explain what that means. That means that of the candidates' priorities, 75% of their priorities, their number one priority, was not about compensation.
Then what was it?
Work-life balance, remote work, new experiences went up from 14% to 20%.
You know what this sounds to me like, though, Evan? I mean, are we experiencing in the job market an inflation of expectations, similar to the monetary, right, inflation that we're experiencing? I mean, does it seem like the market's so tight that candidates are kind of like, oh, well, I kind of don't want to work today, or I want to work in my slippers, or, you know, what do I want out of life as opposed to just money? Where if times were a little tougher and things were a little tighter, maybe those concerns wouldn't be the same?
I completely agree with you. You know, the question no one's asking is, where's all this money going? How are people actually living? And maybe this is a big impact of the gig economy as people are using side hustles as their primary hustle, as their primary income. It's getting harder. And what we saw in the numbers is that more companies were using recruiters to go after the $40,000 to $1,000 salary positions. And if you watched our numbers back in August, about 22% of the recruiters reported that those roles were in that salary range. That's now over 34%. So all of a sudden now you're having recruiters, which ordinarily didn't recruit in those levels, are now you're having companies say, hey, recruiters, get me those people. That's what's hard to do.
But now, there's also, there's a problem recruiting recruiters, right?
Oh, my gosh. You know, earlier this week, Wall Street Journal came up with an article that said the hardest thing to recruit for is recruiters. You know, demand is surging for recruiters. Now, being Recruiter.com, that's a good thing from our perspective. But yes, the demand for recruiters is high. And if, some of the data that we're put out in our Recruiter.com Recruiter Index really shows that the demand for recruiters and staffing professionals is really at an all-time unprecedented high.
Well, it's a great setup for tomorrow's jobs report. The market tends to move on it, and who knows what it'll show. Evan Sohn, thank you.